Welcome to today's Roundtable webcast, brought to you by MicroStrategy and Progress Software. I'm Stephen Faig, Business Development Manager at Unisphere Research in Database Trends and Applications. I will be the host for today's broadcast. Our presentation today is titled The Top BI Trends for 2014. Before we get started, I want to explain how you can be a part of this broadcast. There will be a question and answer session. If you have a question during the presentation, just type it into the question box provided and click on the Submit button. We will try to get to as many questions as possible, but if your question has not been selected during the show, you will receive an email response to it, normally within a few days. Plus, one lucky viewer today will win a $100 American Express gift card. The winner will be announced at the end of the event, so stay tuned to see if you've won. Now, to introduce our speakers for today, Pedro Arellano, Director of Product Marketing at MicroStrategy, and Dion Picco, Senior Director of Product Marketing, Progress Software. For more information on our speakers today, you can click on the Speakers tab on the bottom of your console. Now, to pass the event over to Pedro.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Hi, everybody. This is Pedro Arellano, and thanks for the opportunity to speak here, and thanks for DBTA for hosting this event. Just to give you a little bit of background about me, I'm the Director of Product Marketing at MicroStrategy, a business intelligence enterprise platform company. And my role is specifically in the area of self-service software or self-service BI initiatives, which is something that we've been investing quite a bit in over the past few years. So for the next 25 minutes or so, I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the trends that at MicroStrategy we've been pretty excited about and where we think the market is going, and also talk a little bit about what we're doing in those areas. I'd like to start with this illustration. You have the executive there saying, "I'm not resistant to change. Now let me get back to my Commodore 64." As just a funny way of illustrating a point, which is that we are in the midst of a pretty dramatic transformation of our industry, caused by a number of very disruptive technology trends that are actually allowing us software vendors to deliver applications to the market much faster and ideally more successfully than before. So before I get into what those trends are, let me give you a little bit of an intro into about MicroStrategy for those of you not familiar with us. MicroStrategy has been a leader in the business intelligence sector for over 20 years. We're a publicly traded company, and customers tend to choose MicroStrategy because they're looking for business intelligence applications with the highest levels of performance and scale, with a very sophisticated analytics, but also that combine easy-to-use interfaces, self-service capabilities, and also very easy and quick development tools or techniques for the BI team. We've built a reputation in the industry as technology innovators. We're very proud of our technology heritage. We have about 80 registered patents, and that's typically what industry analysts will recognize us for. And again, it's something that we're very proud of. Most recently, we've had a tremendous amount of success in the mobile space. We're the top-ranked business intelligence vendor when it comes to mobile intelligence, and you'll see us investing in a number of different areas like cloud computing, data discovery, and which are a couple of areas that I'll talk about today. And of course, I do encourage you to visit MicroStrategy.com if you're curious to learn more about any of the things that I'm going to talk about today. So back to the trends. Three trends in particular that I want to talk about with my time is cloud computing, mobile, and data discovery. So I have a couple of slides about each of these, but really the theme here is that, like never before, the combination of these technologies or these advancements are allowing companies to develop more consumable or more pervasive solutions for the market. And what I mean by this is solutions that are being adopted by an audience that traditionally would not have been exposed to business intelligence because of a lack of expertise or because business intelligence is historically the purview of people that have the necessary expertise. But let's start with cloud. Depending on what analyst you believe in or what analysts you look at, you'll see different numbers. The chart that I'm showing here particularly is from Forrester, who predict that by the year 2020, so the next 6 years, the size of the global cloud market will be $160 billion. And, as I said, you'll see different figures depending on the analyst you look at, but all of them agree that cloud computing is already growing at an accelerated rate. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense. We like to draw the analogy to the electrical grid. Many years ago, every manufacturing plant operated with their own electrical generator. But then as the grid became more mature and more reliable, you started seeing companies jumping onto the grid, and electrical generators essentially became used as backup or maybe even obsolete. And we see the same thing happening with computing, where computing is now being used as a utility rather than as an asset. It's a very natural way of consuming software or consuming computing power, and it allows us to deliver solutions to the market much faster with much less risk. And what that means is that also it allows you to experiment much more rapidly and minimizing the risk. If your experiment fails, you probably didn't lose that much in the process. So we're already seeing it today in our own company. We're seeing it in the market, and we expect to see more of this. Companies are realizing the benefits of moving on to a cloud deployment where you don't have to worry about installing or maintaining software. You don't have to worry about maintaining the hardware or the facilities or the staff to keep that infrastructure running or configuration. It makes things a lot faster. It eliminates a lot of different steps of the traditional BI implementation or BI lifecycle. And it just makes a lot of sense. And we hear it from our own customers. We'll hear directors of BI telling us, I don't know why anybody would want to invest in their own hardware nowadays when it's so easy to deploy applications in the cloud. Now, of course, there's still certain sectors, financial, government, of course, that'll probably be slower to adopt the cloud than others because of security requirements. But more and more, as more, same thing that happened with the electrical grid, as more companies start jumping onto the cloud will become more reliable. People will start trusting the cloud more and more, and we'll reach this critical mass where the majority of investment for new deployments goes to the cloud. So that's something that we're very excited about, and that we've also tried to be early to in our technology investments. The next trend that I want to talk about is data visualization or visual data discovery. Very relevant in the BI market nowadays, and you see a number of different specialty vendors with data visualization that it really brought a ton of energy to the market, and it's something that we're fascinated by. Now, data visualization is not anything new. It's been around for a long time. What I'm showing here on this slide is a chart that was created by William Playfair, who was an economist back in the days of the American Revolution. And this, it's just a line chart that's showing the expenditures of the British Crown in the time of the Revolution. So the point of this slide is it's the idea of understanding or consuming data using pictures as opposed to raw numbers has been around for a while, and it does make the interpretation of the data a lot faster and a lot easier. It's easier to spot trends. It's easier to spot patterns and outliers. It makes sense that products that make it very easy for a user to transform the raw numbers, like in an Excel spreadsheet or database tables, into graphics that give them interactivity and would give them a very easy-to-use, very intuitive interaction process, would have a lot of success in the market. And that's what we're seeing. What we're seeing really is that visual data discovery, like few things before it, are really empowering business users to operate in a self-sufficient way. They're interactive. They tend to be very fast, and they are designed for business users. But what's really fascinating about this, in our opinion, is that it has turned the traditional paradigm of BI on its head. Whereas in the past, if you wanted to do traditional BI, you typically need to have a report request, and either it was a report or a dashboard that you have to build yourself, or if you're a business user, more than likely you have to ask your BI team or your IT department to build it for you. And you put in a request, and you get in line, and you wait some time before you get it back, and then you analyze the data. So you build first, and then you analyze later. But with data discovery, you're actually analyzing at the same time as you're building. Typically, with most packages out there, you're just dragging and dropping objects back and forth across the screen, and you're seeing results coming back. And what this allows you to do, which I think is pretty groundbreaking, is it allows you to start your analysis without a predefined question. Now, in traditional BI, you typically have to start with requirements. You start with requirements, and those requirements define the questions that you're going to ask of the data. But with data discovery, you don't need to have a question. You're just literally playing with your data, and that's why the term discovery is very appropriate, because you are discovering insights. You are exploring data, and you're seeing results come back. So as you see the results come back, you might think of questions that you didn't necessarily have when you started your analysis. The next trend is mobile. Mobile, for us, has been an area of heavy investment, and we've had a lot of success here. The thing that's really remarkable about mobile computing is how it's armed us with tremendous information power in the palm of our hand or in our pocket. And I like this slide because it compares what NASA, the computing power that NASA had, back in 1969 when we sent the astronauts to the moon, with the iPhone 5, which many of you probably carry in your pocket. If you carry the iPhone 5, you have more computing power than NASA had back then when we sent astronauts to the moon. Of course, the big difference is that we use it to play things like Flappy Bird. But the point is, it's a really powerful idea to be carrying that kind of decision-making or action-taking power with us anywhere we go. So we're no longer tied to our desks or our computer to be able to consume information and make decisions. So what does this all mean? All of this means that the solutions that are available today using cloud or data discovery or mobile or a combination of them have really created this expectation on all of us where we want to be empowered to do things on our own. For example, if you want to buy a product, you no longer need to go to a store and deal with a store associate. You can just go online, look for reviews, and make purchasing decisions on your own. If you want to book a trip, you don't need to speak to a travel agent if you don't want to. You can just go online and book your travel. You don't even have to go to the bank to deposit a check anymore. So people more and more expect the ability to do things on their own. They expect solutions and applications that are intuitive and then let them make these decisions and take action independently. And the same thing has happened with business intelligence. And the great thing about it is that self-service business intelligence increases the productivity of a business. Think about it. If you have more people creating content, you have more people sharing content, you have more people collaborating, your organization becomes more productive because you're lessening the dependency on your IT department. Your IT department doesn't really want to act as a reporting factory, just updating and creating reports all the time. They want to do things like govern the data, secure the data, sanction the reports that are being created, and they want to let the users create their own reports. But when you look at what's happening today, this is a stat from Wayne Eckerson in a survey he did not too long ago. 36% of respondents gave their self-service programs a grade of good or excellent. That's a small percentage. And part of the problem is that this idea that self-service BI is not a magic wand that you just wave over your organization. Self-service BI is not something that you purchase only. It's something that you also do. Whatever tool you end up selecting for self-service BI, there also needs to be this understanding that IT teams or BI teams are not off the hook, and they have a very important role to play in enabling the self-service ecosystem so that users can eventually become self-sufficient and create their own content and really remove that burden from the IT department. And going back to Wayne Eckerson's study, he has three criteria items for knowing if your self-service BI program is successful. The first one is that your backlog of query requests is going to go down. If you're the IT department, obviously, because your users are going to be creating their own reports. Users are then leveraging corporate-issued tools instead of Spreadmarts or other tools that they find on the Internet, and you have all this chaos of a multitude of tools that your IT department needs to support. And there's no report chaos. What this means is people can trust the data, they can trust the results, and whether you're in marketing or in HR or you're in finance, you know that if you're looking at a revenue metric, you're looking at the same number. And if you select the right tool, and if you spend the time to encourage the adoption of the tool in your organization, you get to this point where there is true collaboration between IT and the business, where you're no longer in a situation where centralized IT makes the decisions, but rather IT is acting as this broker or this advisor to the business about what tools they need or what features and capabilities they need. IT is no longer acting as a report factory. You now have business users that are self-reliant. The analysis of the data does not depend on expertise. It really is up to the user's curiosity. Once they know how to find their way within the tool, their own curiosity and knowledge about their business will help them ask the questions that they want to ask and get the data or the insights that they're looking for. And, of course, it's faster, it's easier, and in many cases it tends to be a lot cheaper. So with that, I'm going to leave you with an invitation to look at what MicroStrategy is doing today in the area of self-service. We have 2 free products available to everybody. One of them is called MicroStrategy Analytics Desktop, which we just released a couple of months ago with tremendous success. It's a self-service visual analytics or data discovery tool designed specifically for business users. Just go to microstrategy.com/free to kick the tires. It's 100% free. It's not a limited trial. It's not free with limited usage. It's completely free and unlimited. And it's designed to help a business user, somebody who doesn't have expertise in business intelligence or data warehouse necessarily, access data from whatever source, wherever it is, combine different sources of data. So you might have spreadsheets and a database system, and you want to combine data from those systems. And then build all these insightful visualizations that help them explore their data, interact with the data, and then share it with others. And then we also have another free product, which is called Analytics Express, which is it's also a visual analytics tool. It uses our same data visualization or data discovery engine, but it's available via the cloud. Now, this one is free for 1 year. Anybody who subscribes to Express will get unlimited use of the product for 12 months. And you go to microstrategy.com/free also to subscribe. So you have the option, whether you want to do your analysis on your desktop or whether you want to do it in the cloud. MicroStrategy gives you the options to do this. And just to continue my advertisement a little bit, the one thing that differentiates MicroStrategy from other approaches you'll find in the market, and this is something that we fundamentally believe very strongly in, is all of it is built on top of the MicroStrategy platform. So, for example, if you're wondering if all self-service BI tools are equipped to handle traditional operation or traditional BI workloads, it really does depend on whether or not that product was designed as a desktop-based tool or if it was designed as a platform. And at MicroStrategy, because of our heritage, because of our technology legacy, everything is built on top of a tightly integrated platform. So whatever you build in any environment, whether you're in the self-service, desktop, or express model, can be seamlessly migrated or ported into the enterprise model, where everything is governed and sanctioned by IT, and users can trust the data. So with that, I want to thank you very much for your time. Here's my contact information, and in case you have any questions or want to learn more, I'm happy to answer your questions, and I will send it back to Stephen.
Thank you, Pedro. Now over to our next speaker for today, Dion Picco, Senior Director, Product Marketing at Progress Software. Dion?
Great. Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, depending on where you are, I suppose, or good evening for anybody in the Europe region. My name is Dion Picco, and I want to talk about a couple of things we see as well around trends in BI. Progress Data Direct, which is the business line I work for, we have a long heritage in providing really around data connectivity to a lot of both ISVs, BI vendors, as well as a lot of large enterprises that use our technology extensively. Some of you may have seen the recent data index that we recently published that kind of gave a snapshot of what are the hot data sources coming up in 2014 and beyond. And I think really it speaks to the volume of partners and customers that we work with that we're able to pull out some of these trends. And so I'll jump right into it and kind of guide you through some of this. The first one that we see is really this emerging trend around doing BI against your SaaS applications. And here I'm talking about SaaS or cloud applications such as, certainly Salesforce.com is perhaps the most popular or the most visible. But, it goes for really any CRM or marketing automation platform, ERPs, and, many other applications, including HR and finance that are out there as well. We definitely see this as a hot trend, and it's no surprise, quite honestly, because really if you look at your average company, they're rapidly adopting SaaS applications. Depending on the stats you use, of course, you can see anywhere from 8 to about 25 different SaaS applications being used by your average company these days. I know at my own company, we're heavy users of SaaS applications. We use, certainly Salesforce and Eloqua and a variety of others as well, and I'm sure for many of you, really no different here. I'll kind of go back here, to the good old days. Of course, this is still very much relevant today for many companies, but in the good old days, really all of your application data for your CRM, your financial applications, whatever it may be, pretty much ran in your own databases, in your own data center. They were probably managed by an IT department. And, if you had a need to start to do BI against those applications, it was actually relatively easy. Most of the BI applications out there support data standards or have connectivity to many of those relational databases that were really powering your data center. Again, I'm speaking to things like the Oracle database, SQL Server, Postgres, MySQL, whatever you may have there. And so, again, it was actually relatively easy to be able to connect to any one of these systems and start to do your visualizations, start to build your reports. But, very recently, let's say over the last 5 or 10 years, really the clouds have started rolling in. Most companies today don't live in a purely on-premise kind of environment anymore. Again, pretty much unless you're within more of a healthcare or a government industry. The reality is most companies these days are certainly much more of a hybrid approach. Some on-premise data and some cloud data, really creating a fragmentation of your data across the enterprise. And this has really complicated things with respect to how do you do BI against those applications. We like to say, it can actually seem like the hardest, easiest thing to do. These companies companies like yours are very much familiar with connecting their favorite BI tool to their local database. And all of a sudden, when you get into a SaaS application environment, you're effectively dealing with a data silo that does not expose the data in a standard way, of course, and that data becomes very much locked into the application itself. Aside from a few of the most popular SaaS applications, I think Salesforce is a great example, the reality is most BI tools lack the connectivity to get you to these different applications. And so ultimately what it would lead to is a lot of custom integration work. Your marketing officer or your CEO is looking to have dashboards and real-time reports and whatever it is they need, and you have to go to IT to build them in many cases. You're bringing in development efforts. You're spending months to try to build that integration out, and each time you need to build a new report, you're really going back and redoing or at least refining a lot of that integration work. For just a couple of applications, that's certainly possible. I think the cost is not overwhelming, although arguably the time to market is still too long. But the reality is the data landscape is fundamentally changing out there. Not only are there just a huge variety or a huge explosion in the number of SaaS applications that a company is using, but they're really starting to run more on different types of infrastructure. They're running on things like Amazon, for example, or Force.com. They're running on new platforms as a service, like Progress's own Pacific platform, or again, some of the other ones like Engine Yard, for example. And so fundamentally, where your data is stored and how it is accessed has really been disrupted in a huge way. And this has created a lot of challenges in order to accomplish BI and dashboarding and reporting, really in order to be able to get the information you need when you need it. Now, if anyone on the phone here is a developer, the first thing you may ask is, well, aren't APIs supposed to solve this problem? All of these SaaS applications to some degree expose very rich web services or REST APIs, in order to allow you to connect to those systems, to input or output data in a much more programmatic or automated or, sort of a configurated type of mechanism. And it is true. If you're a developer, absolutely, APIs can become very useful to you. You can accomplish a lot of goodness, a lot of integration through the use of these APIs. And so again, great if you're a developer. And here's my Mr. Lego developer here, who obviously looks pretty happy that he can connect, in this case, to Salesforce using the published REST APIs, and he can build the integration that your company might need. But what about the rest of us? What about, folks who are generally doing, BI day-to-day? You're an analyst, for example, or you're working in marketing operations or sales operations. How do you do it today? Well, the reality is APIs are just not designed for those type of users. They're not within the skill set of those employees, if you will. And so although these APIs are very rich, although these APIs can certainly be wielded by a great programmer in order to accomplish what you need, they absolutely don't work for just about everybody else. And even for the developers, they certainly have a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of costs just to build those integrations. And so that's quite challenging. And really what we're seeing is that there has to be a better way. And companies have come to us looking for a better way based on our heritage of connectivity. They're really looking to bring standards to the SaaS world, if you will, not just standards for programming, but really standards around data access. And so one of the things that not just us here at Progress have been doing, but a number of vendors out there, and we've actually worked again with a large number of the BI vendors as well as the SaaS vendors themselves, is to really bring the de facto data standards, namely things like SQL, ODBC, or JDBC here, to bear against SaaS applications. These are industry standards for data access. They are not only widely known, they are very broadly supported. It's virtually impossible to find a BI tool or a dashboard or a reporting engine that doesn't support one of ODBC or JDBC. This SQL enabling of these data sources effectively allows just about anybody to connect and access that data, to open up this silo to basically the world, to any data tool that you would need to integrate it with. And so it becomes a very powerful mechanism now that not only brings standards and brings compatibility between those applications and the data tools that you want to use, but it really makes it accessible to the masses. And that's one of the key trends that we're seeing today. The benefits, as I said, I'll get into it in 1 second. The benefits are pretty obvious. I think the first one is, more than anything, it's simplicity. We have, if you know my friend Sumit Sarkar, Sumit has recorded a very funny video of his dog Chili, who's using his favorite BI tool to find the best place to pee. So I encourage you to go on to YouTube and search for Chili. I'm sure you'll get a chuckle out of it. But it really just illustrates that key point, which is by bringing standards to bear, I no longer have to do programming or custom integrations. I can actually have the freedom to choose my favorite data tools and use them against my favorite data applications with no programming and no integration work required. And so it's really a transformation. It really brings, standards that are well known and well accepted to bear in the SaaS world. Again, I spoke of the benefits briefly. I just want to cover them again. The first is, by doing this, you absolutely get real-time business intelligence and analytics directly against your SaaS application. And I think that's important. The real-time aspect here is very important because, we see more and more, business leaders looking for dashboards that are refreshed, whether it's every 15 minutes or every 30 seconds or something in between. That's really the common move these days, is to have, the latest visualizations, the latest dashboards, and the latest informations available at your fingertip and up-to-the-minute information. By doing this, by a SaaS or a SQL enabling your SaaS applications, you're effectively able to do that real-time analysis, and also, because you're using your favorite BI tools, you can start to do that what-if analysis. Myself, I do a lot of business analysis with respect to, business planning, pipeline analysis, and things like this. By allowing me to connect my favorite BI tool to my Salesforce or my Eloqua, I may not know exactly what it is I'm looking for, but it gives me the ability to get in there and start exploring the data. I don't have to export my data as an Excel file and re-import it into the tool. If the data changes while I'm doing my analysis, I don't need again to go back and re-export and re-import it again. I don't have to go to IT and build an integration project. I don't have to fund it through my budget. I don't have to spend that $50K and 3 months of effort just to get my dashboard, pulling in my critical sales or marketing information. And so that idea of real-time intelligence, leveraging the key power of the BI tools against those SaaS applications is very, very important. But, it extends a bit further. I said it really brings compatibility to really all of your data tools, and that extends to things like the web. Whether it's a web BI or you have your own custom web page portal or web page or whatever it may be, again, these things all take advantage of the same standards. You can leverage the ODBC or JDBC standards to connect you directly to this data, again, for real-time consumption or real-time integration. Likewise, I know a lot of IT shops are very much concerned with making sure that their data warehouse and their ETL and MDM processes are encompassing of the SaaS information as well. And again, these tools also support similar standards. So it makes integration into your data warehouse and your data quality initiatives much, much easier to do and much easier to accomplish. And finally, for application developers, I don't want to exclude the developers and I don't want to sort of ostracize them. I think the fact that they have APIs is certainly goodness. But the reality is most of these SaaS application APIs are changing on a regular basis. Salesforce themselves publish new APIs every quarter. Generally speaking, they don't break compatibility, but they certainly, if you want to take advantage of them or get the latest, greatest performance, you're constantly upgrading and updating your use of those APIs. By switching to much more of a standards-based approach built on, again, SQL, ODBC, and JDBC, you're really able to stop dealing with the APIs altogether. You know, the intermediary layer you would deal with effectively shields you from that change. So you get new levels of stability and control that you really didn't have before, quite honestly. And so it can really lower your cost and improve your time to market, even for ISVs who are building applications as well. And those applications, of course, may embed some analytics or visualizations into them, and so you get the benefits of both here. I'll give you a great example. We work with, one of the BI vendors we work with is Explore Analytics. They have a cloud BI analytics tool as well, and they came to us saying, our customers demand that from within their tool, they should be able to access Salesforce data. Salesforce, again, was really the leading indicator, or the leading source for them to support. Their customers really preferred that real-time access. They did not want to go down the road of exporting the data as Excel files and importing them. They really couldn't stand, anything more than a couple of minutes delay at the far out reach of timescales here. And so they wanted real-time access from within the BI tool directly to Salesforce without building custom integrations. Well, they came to us and chose one of our products, I'll mention it in a second, called Data Direct Cloud. Really, Data Direct Cloud provides you the ability to SQL enable just about any SaaS application, of course, the ones that we support, which is an ever-growing list. And so they chose us initially for our Salesforce connectivity, embedded it within their application, their BI tool, and instantly all of their customers now are able to access that Salesforce data just as if it were a local database. We make all of these SaaS applications look and act and behave just like a relational database. But more importantly, it actually future-proofed their investment, because the way Data Direct Cloud works is you have a single driver. This one single ODBC or JDBC interface can connect you to virtually any number of SaaS applications. And so by embedding this into their tool, if they in the future need to support Eloqua or HubSpot or Marketo or any other SaaS application, they don't have to change their application anymore. They simply change a connection string and they're done. And so it gives them this future-proofing capability. They've already come back looking for, big data type of connectivity as well. So things like Mongo and Cassandra, a little bit outside of SaaS and more into the big data NoSQL space, but all through this common interface because we've made everything look and behave just like a relational database as well. So that's really the first trend that we see. Obviously, we are putting our money where our mouth is, if you will, because we believe heavily that this is a big trend moving forward. This is why we invest so much in a product like Data Direct Cloud. If you want to try it, you can head on over to Data Direct Cloud and certainly give it a try today, free of charge. So I'd encourage you all to do that, of course. It should be very easy to set up, and you're able to connect any BI tool or any data tool you want directly to your SaaS applications and get results very quickly. So that is the first trend that we see out there. The second one that we see, and it's a new area of investment for us, and I'll talk about that towards the end, but is this idea of correlated business intelligence. The idea of not just analyzing a single stream of data, but really analyzing multiple streams of data that need to be correlated and unioned and joined in order to make sense of it. I'll give you a few examples. This was a great survey done by Marketing Sherpas there last year. And they actually went to the marketing operations folks as part of their survey and asked them, what is your most frustrating challenge as you deal with marketing analytics? And you can go through this list here, but over and over again, it became the same answer. Just dealing with the variety of data in my company and being able to combine it to find useful results. This was the key issue for them. And so you can see that the combining the data from multiple sources to make correlations or make predictions really ranked as one of the top two issues. Being able to link together data at the individual customer level, looking to do things like a single view of customer. What have they bought? What campaigns have they responded to? What customer support initiatives or customer support tickets have we opened and closed on their behalf? Help me get a 360-degree view of that customer because it's critically important to growing my business. The idea of integrating disparate systems and siloed data or improving the data hygiene across many different systems. These are the kind of problems over and over again we would see come up. And, I'll give you an even more specific use case to sort of highlight the problem. Take something very simple. So imagine you're in marketing operations or sales operations, a role where you're basically dealing with data on a day-to-day basis. And imagine you're a marketing operations person and you need to build a contact list to run a new campaign. So it is Q4, your company wants to drive some additional revenue, you're going to launch a new campaign in Q4, and you need to pull together who that target audience is going to be. Well, the first thing you would probably do is get a list of all your customers that's contained within your Salesforce instance. So, getting all that data out, you'll probably work with your sales operations leader to get that data that you need. You set that aside for a second, and then you'll say, what about all of the people that came to my campaigns, that came to my roundtables? They may be interested as well. And so I would go into my marketing automation platform, whether it's an Eloqua or a Marketo or a HubSpot, whatever it might be, and you would get that list of prospects out and have that aside as well. And then you would say, I probably don't want to sell this to somebody who's already bought it or somebody who's not expressed interest, so I need to look at past purchase history. And so then you're probably going to your data warehouse. You're probably, whether again it's a SQL server or something built on the Progress database, you're going to pull that information out of your data warehouse as well. And now you have at least 3 different sets of data you need to make sense of in order to build that campaign. And just to build that campaign actually took, somebody from marketing ops, sales ops, and potentially IT just to get you that data. And now you have 3 different sets of data you have to make sense of. And so how do you do that? Well, the way businesses have traditionally done it is using what I would call traditional data integration projects, putting it all into a data warehouse, joining it and cleaning it and running an MDM type of process on top of it. And that works, especially if you're a very large company with unlimited pockets and a lot of time. But I need to run now. I need to launch a campaign in Q4. So how do I do that? Well, I certainly can't afford to spend 2 or 3 years waiting on IT to manage a project like that if I don't have it in place. I probably can't afford the millions of dollars it would cost, especially if I'm a small or medium-sized business. And the risk profile of deployments like this is actually pretty high. The moment a company typically undertakes an initiative like this, people start coming out of the woodwork with new requirements, and the project grows so much in scope that it becomes really unsuccessful from the start. Again, very, very large companies have been able to make this successful, but it's really not suitable for anybody at the low end or somebody who needs to turn around a solution very, very quickly. And so what they end up doing is really defaulting back to brute force. And I was at Dreamforce this year really telling a similar story to a number of marketing and sales operations people, and their eyes light up when I tell them this because this is the pain they feel every day. They're going into each and every one of those systems I've talked about, and they're doing manual exports of that data out to Microsoft Excel files. And then hopefully they have some expert on their team in the marketing or sales ops teams who maybe fires up Microsoft Access and uses Excel, and they run some SQL queries, and they spend hours deleting rows and combining data to really formulate this master list of data. And they've spent 6 hours on this. Now they've decided, I'm going to share it out with my colleagues for review. And so they send it out via email, and over the course of the next day or two, they get responses back, and they try to reconcile all that data back to get a clean view of that data. Or, potentially the data set is so big they can't even share it on email anymore, and they share it on a Dropbox or other similar infrastructure, which obviously makes their IT people a little bit nervous. Well, this whole approach is brute force, but it's the way they're most comfortable with, I think, for a few reasons. The first is everybody has a copy of Microsoft Excel. It's still the data tool that all businesses are familiar with and use and have a license of. But I think more importantly, it's the only way to get the results they need in time. And I talk to these marketing and sales ops folks. They are regularly spending 8 to 10 hours a week sitting there just churning out line after line of Excel data just to finally get that final report. And not only is it time-consuming, not only is it non-repetitive and non-scalable, it also leads to just really frustrated employees. And I think this is really the next big trend in BI. Just as we've had self-service BI and visualization really occur over the last 3 to 5 years, I think you're really going to see this new move towards self-service data integration as really a supporting piece of what true real BI is. Because for a lot of these use cases, and I've painted a simple picture here of really building an email campaign, but the reality is for a lot of these use cases, you're going to find that you really need to pull information from multiple systems, join it, clean it, and then feed that to your BI system for visualization. Because you need a correlated view. You need a 360-degree view across all of your business systems, really sometimes to make sense of it. And so you can imagine simple use cases like customer profiling or contact management, or really trying to understand the effectiveness of a campaign. A great example, I will often log campaign budgets in a tool like Allocadia. I will track the campaign performance in my marketing automation tool like an Eloqua, and I will check to see what closed-won business I've won in my Salesforce. And so if I want to track the ROI and the effectiveness of a campaign, I need to join data across all three of those systems. And so this extends in many, many use cases. And I'm really focusing on marketing and sales right now because they're the ones who are most acutely feeling the pain. They're dealing with things like demand waterfalls and product sales predictions and single view of customers or personalized marketing as well. And so I think this again becomes this next wave of where BI is going to go, really domain and vertical and industry-specific solutions designed to do analysis across many different streams of correlated data at the same time. From a progress perspective, we think not only is this the new wave, it's something we're going to heavily invest in. And we have a new product that will hit the market soon called Progress Easel. And this idea is to unite your data, to really start to ignite your business, to understand new insights, and to really support your BI and dashboarding initiatives. And so I'd encourage you all to keep an eye out, head on over to the progress.com website and take a look for yourself. I'm obviously very excited about this product, but I'm also very excited about this space. I think it's going to be an area for a lot of innovation and a lot of disruption over the next few years. A little bit about Progress Software for those who haven't heard about us. We've been around for really over 30 years at this point, and we have over 140,000 organizations in more than 180 countries using our technology. We have a huge network of partners, over 2,000 partners who use our technology and use our technology really to run their businesses. Over 4 million people are using applications built on our infrastructure and our technology as well, and we're public and we trade under the NASDAQ. And so for those of you who don't know Progress or who may know us as, an older database company, I'd encourage you to go and take a look. We're really bullish on this whole new world of data, analytics, BI. I think, our work with our BI partners really speaks to the excitement and the investment we're putting there as well. And so love to get any feedback, and I'd love to have you try our products and hopefully make you very successful. So with that, I'll turn it back to Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you, Dion. And now let's move into some questions from our viewers. And the first question is for Pedro. Pedro, how can IT departments deliver self-service to end users without compromising the integrity of their data?
Thanks, Stephen. That's a great question. It ties back to something I said earlier about what's underneath your data discovery solution. There's a lot of great companies doing some really interesting things in the market today. But one of the things you need to watch out for is whether the solution can ensure that every user is seeing the single version of the truth. And unfortunately, you're going to find a number of desktop-based products or products that started out as desktop-based solutions that can't really do this architecturally because they don't have the necessary foundation underneath, the architecture underneath. What we've tried to do at MicroStrategy, and this is something that we've developed throughout our existence, is this central reusable metadata. And trying not to get too technical, basically what that what that guarantees is that if there is a revenue metric or if there is a customer dimension, it's going to be the same for everybody, and you're not creating a separate collection of data objects with every dashboard you create. So you don't have all these different disparate islands of information, and you end up with with users not being able to trust the numbers that they're looking at. So this central reusable metadata ensures that it doesn't matter who you are and what you're using to access the data, you're going to be looking at the same number, at the same results. And it's possible because it is a platform architecture underneath. So yes, it is possible to deliver self-service capabilities to your end users where they can be prototyping or they can be sandboxing or they can be accessing data on their own, but still ensure that you can govern and sanction the data if you're on the IT side, and just make sure that you're looking at the right tool for that. Not all tools can ensure that.
Thank you, Pedro. Understood. Dion, next question. How long and at what cost does it take to put a SaaS BI solution in place?
I think with more of the traditional type of integration approaches, generally speaking, it can take anywhere from weeks to months, quite honestly, especially as you learn the APIs and deal with the nuances of the APIs. Obviously, then there's the overhead of the maintenance cost, especially in the face of changing APIs and updates to those SaaS applications. And so, I certainly won't put an exact dollar on it, but you can imagine that, development efforts for the initial setup along with the maintenance over time can certainly lead to a pretty expensive solution, well into the 6 or 7 figures in some cases. I think one of the reasons why customers and partners love the approach we're bringing to market here is that really it's just an installable component. There's no programming required. You simply install the connectivity onto your, whether it's a desktop or a server machine for your dashboards or whatever it might be. And, pretty much instantly, because it works directly with your operating system as if it were a regular relational database, you can be up and running within a couple of hours with really no help at all. You may need to read a few documentations to configure your driver, if it will, but that's pretty much it, quite honestly. So a few hours and very low cost, aside from the licensing, which is also very, very low cost. Certainly, you'll save almost months in time overall, and certainly, get you down to 3, 4, 5 figures at the most.
Understood. I think this next question is a great one, and it's one that both of you can weigh in on, and we'll start with Dion. Dion, a huge trend going on right now, obviously, is big data and new data processing platforms such as Hadoop that are enabling organizations to be able to capture and store and process different types of data. There's a lot of talk in terms of opportunities around business intelligence and big data. What do you see as the key challenges that MicroStrategy is really focused on addressing?
So this is Pedro. I'll answer that from the MicroStrategy perspective. Big data is a very interesting topic for us. First and foremost, because it's necessary to separate the hype, the buzz, from what's really behind big data. Unfortunately, there's been so much marketing buzz or marketing hype created around the term big data that it's kind of lost all meaning. I'll walk into a customer meeting and they'll ask me, "What's my big data strategy?" And I respond, "What does that even mean?" And the issue is that there's a need for education about what big data truly is. If you follow Gartner's definition of it, the 3 V's, there's velocity, there's volume, there's variety. Many applications out there, probably most of the traditional business applications out there, are very large amounts of data, but not necessarily big data. Lowe's, for example, eBay, they're MicroStrategy customers, or probably Lowe's, some big retailers like the post office, they're MicroStrategy customers that have massive amounts of data, but it's fairly straightforward, structured data. But then you get into weblogs like eBay or social media data. Then you get into semi-structured and unstructured data. and that's where big data problems really lie. It's another area that we've been investing a lot in being, helping our customers analyze not just structured data, but also semi-structured and unstructured data, regardless of the volume. It's something that we've done throughout our existence. I like to say that we've been doing big data since before the term even existed, and we've kind of earned that reputation as at least from the volume perspective, having some of the most the largest deployments in the industry. But when you are talking about big data with a vendor in particular, it is important to make sure that you separate the facts from the fiction.
Yeah, I would agree. This is Dion. I would agree with Pedro on most of all of those points. Quite honestly, I think certainly for a lot of the big data, new SQL, NoSQL, a lot of people are really grouping that into the same bucket today, at least from a discussion perspective, and that definitely confuses or muddies the water a little bit. I would say there's certainly challenges with complete unstructured data analysis, and I think a lot of innovation and a lot of new technology is going to certainly come up there. I think there's a class of what people would consider, and I use air quotes, big data, things like MongoDB and Cassandra, for example, where analysis isn't always that difficult because, you can easily flatten it or map it in some ways to much more of a structured approach and really take advantage of the tools that are out there today. I see some of the challenges of big data really still pointing back towards really lack of standards, people writing their own query languages or having, a lack of standardized interfaces to any of their big data sources. Combining that with the fact there's just a huge explosion in the vendors in the big data space that inevitably there's going to be a lot of market consolidation that's going to take place. So there's a lot of risk here for people. And then finally, and very importantly, is that there's still a skills gap to being able to do this. I think you can go to your local community college and find someone who can manage your Oracle database. Finding somebody who can effectively deal with a Hadoop deployment, for example, is not so common. And so, the challenges of BI are really, still in some cases not that different from the challenge of just managing a big data deployment in general. I think there's still a lot of growing pains around that still to come.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dion. That is all the time we have for questions today. We apologize that we were unable to get to all the questions, but as I stated earlier, all questions will be answered via email. I would like to thank our speakers today, Pedro Arellano, Director of Product Marketing at MicroStrategy, and Dion Picco, Senior Director of Product Marketing at Progress Software. If you would like to review this presentation or send it to a colleague, please use the same URL that you used for today's live event. It will be archived for 90 days. Plus, you will receive an email tomorrow once the archive is posted. Normally, this occurs within 24 hours. Plus, if you would like a PDF of the presentation, you can click on the resource icon at the bottom of the console. As we stated earlier, just for participating in today's event, someone would win a $100 American Express gift card. And the winner today is Susan Lowe. Susan, we will be in touch with you via email for the correct place to send the card. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you again soon.